Ifema walked slowly along the busy roadside. The sun was hot, and the ground burned under her bare feet. She carried nothing with her, not even food. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it, as she had learned to do every day. Around her, cars honked and people hurried, each minding their own business. Nobody noticed the thin girl with worn clothes who was trying to survive one step at a time. As she walked near the gutter, something shiny caught her eye. She bent down and saw a leather wallet lying in the dirt. It looked clean, not like something that had been thrown away. Ifema's hands trembled as she picked it up. She turned it over and opened it slowly. Inside were crisp notes of money, more than she had ever held in her whole life. Her eyes grew wide. Her heart beat fast, and she quickly looked around to see if anyone was watching. There were also cards, papers, and a driver's license. The face of a man stared back at her from the small plastic card. He looked rich and important. Ifema closed the wallet and pressed it against her chest. For a moment, her mind was torn apart. She thought of the food she could buy, the clothes she could wear, maybe even a small place to sleep for a night. For a homeless girl who had nothing, this wallet felt like treasure sent from heaven. People walking nearby noticed her holding it. One man laughed and said, "Girl, keep it. No one will know. That much money can feed you for many days." Another woman shook her head and muttered, "Even if she keeps it, someone will still take it away from her. Better spend it quickly." Ifema listened but said nothing. She looked down at the wallet again. Her lips moved as she whispered to herself, "This is not mine. I cannot keep what belongs to another." Her voice was soft but strong, even though hunger pulled at her body. She remembered her mother's words, long ago, before sickness took her away. "Ifema, no matter how poor you are, never take what is not yours. Honesty is the true wealth of the poor." Those words stayed with her like a shadow that never left. Even when she begged on the streets, even when people threw insults at her, she tried to remain true to what her mother had taught her. She held the wallet tightly and walked away from the crowd. Her stomach made a loud sound, and she felt weak. She passed a food seller frying plantain by the roadside. The smell rose into the air and made her dizzy. The seller looked at her and shouted, "You have money, little girl? Come and buy." Ifema shook her head and hurried away. The wallet seemed heavy in her hands, not because of its weight, but because of the choice inside it. She found a quiet corner near an old wall and sat down. She opened the wallet again and counted the notes. It was more money than she had ever dreamed of. Her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "One meal, just one meal, no one will know." She held the money between her fingers, but then she quickly pushed it back inside. Her heart told her it was wrong. A small boy ran past and stopped when he saw her. "Sister," he said, pointing at the wallet, "where did you get that? Are you rich now?" Ifema shook her head gently. "No, little one. This belongs to someone else. I must find the owner." The boy laughed and ran off shouting, "You are foolish. Nobody will give you thanks. They will only call you stupid." Ifema hugged the wallet close to her chest and closed her eyes. She imagined the man in the picture on the card. Maybe he was searching everywhere for it. Maybe he needed the papers inside. Maybe he was worried. She thought about how she would feel if the only thing she owned was lost. Slowly, courage filled her heart. "I will return it," she said to herself. "Even if I am hungry, I will do what is right." She stood up and began to walk toward the main street where there were offices and big houses. Her steps were slow because she was weak, but her spirit was firm. People stared at her, some shaking their heads, others laughing. But Ifema did not listen. The wallet was not hers, and no hunger or pain could change that truth. That evening, as the sky turned orange, she was still walking with the wallet pressed to her chest. She did not know how she would find the man, or where his house was, but she knew one thing, the wallet had to go back. Even though she was poor, even though she was hungry, Ifema chose honesty over greed. And that choice was about to change her life forever. The wallet belonged to Chief Oladeo, one of the richest men in the city. His name was known everywhere. His face appeared in newspapers and on posters. He owned banks, farms, big shops, and companies that stretched across the land. People feared him, respected him, and envied him. But they also whispered something else. They said Chief Oladeo cared little for the poor. He lived in his big mansion with tall gates, shiny cars, and guards who watched every corner. To most people, he was like a king behind walls. Ifema did not know much about him, only what she had heard in stories people told on the street. But when she saw his name on the card inside the wallet, she knew it must be returned to him. So, holding it close, she asked passers-by where she could find his home. Many were surprised that a thin homeless girl wanted to know where the chief lived. "Why do you ask, little one?" an old trader asked her. "I have something that belongs to him," she replied simply. Some laughed, thinking she was playing tricks. Others shrugged and pointed her in the right direction. And so she walked. Her feet hurt, her stomach growled, but her spirit pushed her forward. Step by step, she made her way across the busy city until she saw the place. The mansion stood tall and proud, with walls painted white and gold. Guards in fine uniforms stood at the large iron gates. Expensive cars rolled in and out, while workers rushed about. It was like another world, far away from the broken shelters and dirty streets where Ephema lived. She paused for a moment, clutching the wallet tightly. Her heart beat fast. Could she, a poor homeless girl, really walk up to that gate? Would anyone even believe her? Fear whispered in her ear, but her mother's words rang louder in her memory. Honesty is the true wealth of the poor. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. When the guards saw her, they laughed loudly. "Look at this beggar," one said. "What do you want here?" "I want to see Chief Oladeo," Ephema answered softly but firmly. The guards laughed even harder. "A beggar wants to see the chief," another mocked. "Do you think he has time for someone like you? Go away before we chase you off." Ephema did not move. She held the wallet close and lifted her chin. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "Tell him I have something that belongs to him." The guards exchanged looks. They thought she was lying. But one of them, curious, said, "What is it you have?" Ephema slowly opened her hand and showed the wallet. The guards fell silent. They knew the chief had been upset that very morning, searching for his lost wallet. The man's identity card and important papers were inside, along with money he had carried. They had seen how angry he was. The guards frowned, confused. How could this poor girl have the chief's wallet? They whispered to each other. One of them said, "Maybe she stole it." Another said, "No, she looks too scared. Maybe she found it." Ephema hugged the wallet close again and said, "I did not steal it. I found it by the roadside. It belongs to the chief, and I came to return it." The guards were unsure, but the matter was too serious to ignore. One of them finally said, "Wait here." He went inside, leaving Ephema standing at the gate with the other guard watching her carefully. She waited quietly, ignoring the stares of passers-by who wondered why a homeless girl stood outside such a grand mansion. Inside, the guard spoke to the chief's assistant. Soon, word reached Chief Oladeo himself. At first, he frowned. "A street girl has my wallet? Impossible. She must have stolen it." But his assistant said, "Chief, she insists she found it and brought it here herself. Perhaps we should at least see her." Chief Oladeo waved his hand. "Bring her in," he said, his voice sharp and commanding. Back at the gate, the guard nodded to Ephema. "The chief will see you," he said, almost surprised himself. Ephema stepped through the tall gates for the first time. Her small feet touched the smooth stones of the driveway. She looked around in wonder. Everything was so clean, so big, so different from the world she knew. The flowers in the garden smelled sweet, the cars shone like mirrors, and the house itself looked like a palace. She was led inside. Her eyes grew wide as she saw the high ceilings, the bright lights, and the golden decorations. It was like stepping into a dream. But she held the wallet tightly, reminding herself why she had come. Finally, she was brought into a large room. There, on a wide chair, sat Chief Oladeo himself. He was a tall man with strong shoulders and a face that carried both pride and power. He looked at her with sharp eyes. "So," he said slowly, "you are the girl who claims to have my wallet." Ephema stepped forward, her knees shaking, but she did not drop her head. She stretched out her small hand and held out the wallet. "Yes, sir. I found it on the roadside. I came to give it back." The room grew quiet. The assistants and guards standing nearby exchanged glances. Chief Oladeo leaned forward and took the wallet. He opened it and saw everything inside, every note, every card, every paper. Nothing was missing. For a long moment, he said nothing. His eyes moved from the wallet to the thin, tired girl standing before him. Then he asked, "Why? Why did you bring it back? You could have kept the money. No one would know." Ephema looked at him with her large, tired eyes. Her voice was soft but steady, "Because it is not mine. My mother taught me never to take what does not belong to me." The chief leaned back, staring at her. His mind was filled with surprise. In a world where even rich men betrayed each other for money, this poor, hungry girl had chosen honesty. For the first time in a long while, he felt something stir in his heart. The assistants whispered among themselves, amazed. The guards shifted uneasily, remembering how they had mocked her. But Ephema stood still, waiting. She had done her part. She had no idea that this single act, simple but powerful, was about to change her life forever. Chief Oladeo rose slowly from his chair. He had been told a poor girl brought his wallet, but seeing her with his own eyes was different. She looked so small in the great hall, her clothes torn, her feet dusty from the streets. Yet in her hand, she held the leather wallet that many powerful men would have fought to keep. He stepped closer, his face unreadable. Everyone in the room fell silent, watching. The chief reached out and took the wallet. With quick fingers, he opened it, counting the money and checking the cards inside. His sharp eyes moved over every page, every note. Nothing was missing. Not a single coin, not a single paper. The chief looked at her again, disbelief in his voice. "Why?" he asked slowly. "Why did you not take the money? You are hungry. You are poor. You could have used it to eat, to sleep in a better place. No one would have known. Why?" Ephema stood still, her small hands clasped in front of her. She lifted her eyes to meet his. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Because it is not mine. I have nothing, but I still have my honesty." The room seemed to freeze. The assistants and guards stopped moving. They looked at her, then at the chief, waiting for his reaction. For a moment, Chief Oladeo said nothing. He stared at the girl, his lips slightly parted. Her words cut into him like a knife, sharper than any insult he had ever received. Honesty. It was such a simple word, yet it carried more weight than all the gold in his house. He thought of all the people he had met in his life. Business partners who lied for profit. Politicians who smiled in his face but spoke against him in secret. Even some of his own relatives who begged for money while plotting behind his back. So many hands had reached into his wealth, pulling pieces away. Yet here stood a homeless girl, hungry and weak, who had chosen not to take a single coin that was not hers. The chief cleared his throat, but his voice faltered. "You mean to tell me, child, that you walked all the way here with this wallet, and not once did you think of keeping the money?" Ephema shook her head slowly. "I thought of it," she admitted honestly. "My stomach is empty. I have not eaten since yesterday. But when I looked at the wallet, I remembered my mother. She always told me, 'Ephema, we may be poor, but never steal. We may sleep hungry, but never take what is not yours.'" Her voice trembled at the memory, but she did not look away. "So I brought it back. Even if I go hungry again today, I will not eat food bought with lies." The chief's chest tightened. His eyes softened without him realizing. Around him, his assistants shifted uncomfortably. Some of them had taken bribes in the past, some had lied for money. They knew this little girl was braver than they were. For the first time in many years, Chief Oladeo felt speechless. His power, his riches, his high position, none of it mattered in that moment. He stood before a truth he could not buy. He walked slowly to his chair and sat down, still holding the wallet. He leaned back, his eyes never leaving Ephema. Finally, he spoke, his voice lower this time. "What is your name?" "Ephema," she answered softly. "How old are you?" 14, she replied. "Where are your parents?" the chief asked. Her eyes dropped to the floor. "They are gone. My mother died 2 years ago. My father. I never knew him. Since then, I have lived on the streets." The chief's heart stirred again. 14. A child, yet carrying the weight of hunger and pain that many grown men could not bear. He tapped the wallet against his hand, deep in thought. "You are different," he said at last. "Most people would have stolen from me without shame. But you," he paused, almost as if searching for the right words. "You guard honesty like a treasure. Tell me, Ephema, what do you want?" Ephema blinked. No one had ever asked her that before. She hesitated, unsure how to answer. I just want food for today," she said honestly. "And a safe place to sleep. Tomorrow, I will try again to survive." The chief's assistants exchanged glances. Some frowned, thinking she was just another beggar asking for help. But the chief saw something deeper. She had been given a chance to ask for riches, but she spoke only of food and safety. Chief Oladeo leaned forward. "You do not want money? You do not want new clothes or gold?" Ephema shook her head. "Money can finish. Clothes can tear. Gold can be stolen. But honesty stays with me. That is enough." Silence filled the room again. For a long time, the chief said nothing. He felt something heavy inside his chest, something he could not name. respect, shame, admiration, all mixed together. At last, he let out a long breath. I have never met anyone like you, he admitted, almost to himself. Not among my friends, not among my workers, not even among my family. You are poor, but you are richer than many who live in this mansion. You are small, but your spirit is great. Ifema looked at him, unsure if she should speak. Her eyes were calm, though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. The chief slowly rose to his feet again. He walked closer, stopping just before her. Ifema, he said, his voice steady now, you saved more than my wallet today. You reminded me of something I forgot long ago. That honesty is the greatest treasure. The assistants lowered their eyes, ashamed. The guards stood stiff, remembering how they had mocked her at the gate. Ifema only bowed her head slightly, her face calm. In that moment, the great chief and the homeless girl stood face to face. One had everything but had forgotten truth. The other had nothing but carried truth like a crown. And for the first time in many years, Chief Oladeo felt small before someone else. He did not yet know what he would do for her. But deep inside, he knew her life, and his, would not remain the same after this meeting. Chief Oladeo stood for a long time, thinking. The words of the homeless girl still echoed in his ears. Honesty. It was such a simple word, but it shook his heart in a way money never could. Finally, he cleared his throat and motioned to the guards. Bring her inside, he said quietly. The guards looked at each other in surprise. They were not used to seeing their master invite beggars into the mansion. But no one dared question him. One of them opened the heavy iron gate, and Ifema followed slowly, her bare feet silent on the tiled floor. She clutched the small cloth bag she carried, though it was almost empty. The mansion was enormous, its walls shining with marble, its floors lined with soft rugs. Ifema had never seen such beauty. Chandeliers sparkled above her, golden curtains swayed gently in the wind from hidden fans. To her, it looked like another world. Yet she did not let her eyes wander for long. She kept her head low, moving quietly behind the chief. They entered a large dining room, and the chief gestured for her to sit. Bring food, he told the servants. In a few minutes, plates of rice, meat, and fruits were placed before her. Ifema looked at the food with wide eyes. Her hands trembled slightly. She had not eaten a real meal in days. Still, she whispered, May I? The chief nodded. Eat. She picked up a spoon carefully, as if afraid the food might disappear. She began slowly, almost shyly, then her hunger took over. Bite after bite, she ate, but she never rushed. She paused sometimes, lifting her eyes to make sure it was truly for her. The chief watched in silence. When she was done, she leaned back, wiping her mouth with the corner of her old cloth. Thank you, she whispered softly. The chief poured her a glass of water. As she drank, he asked, Tell me about your life, Ifema. I want to know. For a moment, she stayed quiet. Few had ever cared to listen to her story. But something in his voice made her trust him. She placed the glass down gently and spoke. My parents died when I was very small, she began. There was a fire in our house. My mother tried to carry me out, but she did not survive. My father had gone long before then. I was left alone. Since that day, I have lived on the streets. The chief leaned back slowly, his hand resting on the table. His eyes did not move away from her. She continued, her voice steady but soft. Some days, kind people gave me food. Many days, I went hungry. I learned to beg for scraps. Sometimes I sold small things, like sachets of water or groundnuts, just to survive. At night, I slept wherever I found space. But I was never truly alone. Other children, like me, were also on the streets. And when I had something, no matter how little, I shared with them. I could not eat while another child beside me stayed hungry. She looked down, her fingers twisting the cloth in her lap. This is my life. Hard, but I try to keep my heart clean. Chief Oladeo said nothing for a long while. He only watched her, his chest heavy. The room was silent, except for the faint ticking of a clock on the wall. He thought of the countless nights he had dined at long tables filled with food, while outside his gate, children like Ifema slept hungry. He thought of the money he spent on cars, houses, and luxuries, while others prayed for just one meal. His hands curled slowly into fists. Shame burned in his heart. For years, he had told himself he owed nothing to the poor. He believed his riches were his alone. Yet here sat a girl with nothing, who still gave to others. She lived in honesty and kindness while he lived in selfishness. He cleared his throat. You share with others, even when you have nothing? Ifema nodded. Yes. My mother used to say, when your hand is closed, you cannot give, but you also cannot receive. So I keep my hand open. If I find bread, I break it in two. If I find water, I pour it in many cups. That way, no one near me goes thirsty. The chief leaned forward, his eyes narrowing slightly. But don't you fear being left with nothing? She shook her head. I am already used to nothing. If I share, at least I do not feel alone. When we eat together, even a small piece of bread feels big. The chief's throat tightened. He could not remember the last time he shared anything without expecting something in return. The servants in the room lowered their eyes, some blinking away tears. They too had never heard words so pure, spoken in such a simple voice. The chief rose slowly from his chair. He paced the room, his hands behind his back, his mind heavy. He was testing himself as much as he was testing her. He wanted to see if her honesty and kindness were true, or if they were only words. But everything about her felt real. Finally, he turned to face her. Ifema, he said slowly, you have taught me something today. All my life, I thought wealth was in houses, cars, and gold. But you, with nothing, have shown me a wealth that is greater than mine. Honesty, compassion, kindness. These are riches no thief can steal. Ifema bowed her head, unsure how to respond. She had only spoken the truth of her life. She did not know it had shaken the heart of the most powerful man in the city. The chief sighed deeply, his eyes softening. For the first time in many years, he whispered, I feel ashamed. I have eaten while others starved. I have looked away from the suffering of children like you. And yet, you, without food, without shelter, chose honesty and kindness above all. He returned to his chair slowly, staring at the wallet still on the table. Perhaps God sent you here, not just to return what I lost, but to remind me of what I have truly lost in my soul. The room was silent again. The servants stood still. Ifema sat quietly, her face calm, her heart steady. She did not know what would happen next. But she felt she had done her part. And for Chief Oladeo, the test was complete. He now knew that true greatness did not lie in money, but in the strength of a pure heart. Chief Oladeo sat in his great hall long into the night, thinking about the homeless girl who had returned his wallet. Her words had not left him. Honesty, kindness, sharing. These were things he had heard as a boy but forgotten as he grew rich. He had allowed wealth to cover his eyes, but Ifema had pulled the cloth away. By morning, his heart was settled. He knew what he had to do. When the sun rose, the household woke to whispers of something unusual. The chief had called the family and the elders together. His sons, daughters, and relatives filled the hall, curious about why they were summoned so early. The servants stood along the walls, their heads bowed. At the front, Ifema sat quietly. She wore the same simple dress she had worn on the streets, washed but still torn at the edges. She did not understand why the chief wanted her there, but she obeyed. Chief Oladeo stood, his tall frame commanding the room. He looked at his people and then at Ifema. His voice was firm, but there was a gentleness in it that many had not heard before. This girl, he began, was found with my wallet. It was full of money, full of cards, full of documents. She could have taken it all. No one would have known. She is homeless, hungry, and has nothing. Yet she returned it without touching even one coin. Tell me, how many of us, with plenty, would do the same? The room fell into silence. Some lowered their heads, ashamed. Others glanced at the girl with new respect. The chief continued. I have built houses, I have built companies, I have built a name. But I have not built honesty in myself or in others. This girl has reminded me of the true meaning of riches. Wealth without honesty is empty. Power without kindness is dust. His words struck the people deeply. Even his own children looked at each other, surprised to hear their father speak so openly. Then the chief made an announcement that shook everyone. From this day, Ifema will no longer sleep on the streets. She will live in this house, under my protection. She will have education, food, and care. And more than that, I will build something greater than this mansion. I will build a foundation to protect and raise children like her, children who have been forgotten by the world. A murmur filled the hall. Some of his relatives gasped. A beggar in the mansion? A street child treated like family? It was unheard of. But the chief raised his hand, silencing them. This is my decision. It is final. Tears filled Ifema's eyes, though she tried to hide them. She had lived her whole life expecting nothing, and now a door of hope opened wide before her. She bowed her head and whispered, "Thank you, sir." From that day, her life changed. She was given her own room, simple but warm, with a bed she could call her own. The first night she lay down, she cried quietly, not from sadness, but from joy. For the first time, she was not afraid of the dark, not afraid of the cold. She was safe. School began soon after. At first, it was strange to hold books again, to sit in a classroom, to hear a teacher call her name. She was older than some of the children, but she worked harder than all of them. Every lesson was precious to her, every page a treasure. The chief often watched her from a distance. Each day, he felt prouder. He saw her determination, her honesty, her kindness shining even brighter than before. She shared her food at school, helped her classmates, and encouraged other children who felt lost. But it was not just Efima who changed. The chief changed too. True to his word, he started a foundation. It began with one building where homeless children could eat, sleep, and learn. But soon it grew. More buildings rose. Schools opened. Streets that once held children sleeping on cardboard now echoed with their laughter. The whole city saw the change. At public events, people praised Chief Oladeo. They called him generous, noble, a man of vision. But whenever he spoke, he always pointed to Efima. "Do not praise me," he said. "Praise the girl who taught me that wealth is nothing without honesty. She is the seed of this work. Without her, I would still be blind." As years passed, Efima grew into a bright and wise young woman. She completed her schooling and became a leader in the very foundation the chief had built. Children looked up to her, women admired her strength, and men respected her courage. She had once been a beggar, but now she was a teacher of hope. The chief, now older, would sometimes sit with her in the garden. He would watch her speak to groups of children, her voice steady, her eyes filled with compassion. Then he would smile and say softly, "Efima, you have given me more than I ever gave you. You returned my wallet, but you also returned my soul." And so, the city learned a great lesson. They saw that poverty was not a curse, and wealth was not always a blessing. They saw that true riches were not measured in coins or gold, but in the honesty of the heart and the kindness of the hand. People began to change. More rich men opened schools. More families welcomed orphans. More children found hope. All because one homeless girl refused to keep what was not hers. The story of Efima spread far and wide. Some called her the girl of honesty, others called her the heart of the city. But Efima only smiled and said, "I was just doing what was right." Chief Oladeo always replied, "And that is what makes you great." In the end, it was not the mansion, not the cars, not the companies that made Oladeo's name remembered. It was the simple act of one girl and the transformation it brought. And every time the chief spoke to crowds, he reminded them, true riches begin with honesty. The people listened. The people believed. The people changed. And Efima's life, once lost to the streets, became a light for all.